Hey everybody, and welcome to Let's Look at Sanctum 2. Prepare for this to be the week of tower defense games. I've already covered Super Sanctum TD, which is the spin-off, kind of isometric 2D tower defense game that is, from the Sanctum series, which we're covering the sequel of right now. There's also Anomaly 2 coming out later this week, and who knows, there's usually like 2 or 3 tower defense games that just come out randomly on Steam in any given period. But in any case, this is Sanctum 2, the sequel to the 2011, I believe, first-person shooter / tower defense hybrid. So this is kind of a unique take on the tower defense model, although I will say it reminds me an awful lot of the Blitz mode from the original Monday Night Combat, which is basically like a cooperative third-person shooter / tower defense game. It's got a lot in common with that. If you haven't played the original Monday Night Combat, don't sweat it, although that is one of my favorite pseudo-tower defense games. So I played about 2 hours of this so far, both single-player and co-op, and we're not going to play co-op in this video, but what I will say is that the co-op that I've played works fine. Mind you, I was playing online, but with someone that was sitting, literally 10 feet away from me. So your mileage might vary, but in my experience, the co-op has worked pretty seamlessly. And the easiest way to kind of describe what's going to happen here, I mean, if you've seen the Super Sanctum TD video, you know the framework for what's going to happen, but why don't we jump into the park level, which is fairly early on, and you're probably going to find it pretty easy to come to grips with what the heck this game is all about. So we're going to press the any key here. Before we get started, we can choose whatever character we want to play as. They each have different weapons, and we can change our loadout to a certain extent. But we have Sky Autumn, who has an assault rifle, and can double jump, which I actually did not know. Sweet Autumn, who has a rocket launcher, basically, with great air control. Simo has a sniper rifle, and obviously that has better accuracy. And Hygen Hawkins has the shotgun, which does more damage close up, obviously, but I guess he's a little bit tankier as well. I like playing as Sweet Autumn with the rocket launcher. And then again, like Super Sanctum TD, we kind of have the option to change our loadout a little bit. So I could go with either the voltaic hand cannon as my secondary, or I could take the battle rifle, which I will take. And each weapon has a primary and a secondary fire as well. We can also adjust our towers. I don't have too many options so far. I basically got a Gatling gun turret, which is quick, a cannon turret, which does a little bit more damage, and a lightning turret that hits enemies in an area of effect and slows a little bit, I believe. And then this mine dispenser as well, which doesn't work as well as it works in the Super Sanctum TD. We also have perks, so, I could take 1 in every 3 hits deals 100% of weapon damage, adds a lightning bounce to your shot that deals 50% of weapon damage to another close enemy, or heals the core for 12%, etc., etc. Anyway, you don't need to hear all of those, but I'm going to make it so my weapon does, once every 3 shots, it does double damage. And why don't we just get started here, and you'll get a feel for how this works. So this is the one of the things that's worth talking about when it comes to Sanctum 2 is the visuals, and I think this game looks really, really good and really, really interesting. I mean, it does have kind of like that Portal 2, kind of like white, futuristic aesthetic, and the blues and the oranges as well are kind of ubiquitous in this day and age. But it looks good. It looks totally unique for what I would say, despite the Portal 2 reference I made earlier, and it's a visually pleasing game to kind of exist in, if you will. Now, from a gameplay standpoint, enemies come out of areas like this one over here. I think this one only has one kind of enemy spawner, and they try to get to our core, and when they get to our core, they attack it and do damage. Again, if you've played Monday Night Combat, this is going to seem pretty familiar. It's weird that that is such a good comparison, considering that game's 4 years old. But in any case, we have 2 different kinds of resources that fall at the end of every wave, or the start of every wave, I guess, depending on how you want to look at it. The one that I've just picked up is blocks, I guess I'm going to call them for lack of a better word. These are what we're going to use to build our maze. And this one is going to be, I guess I'll just call that money or ammo or something. I guess I don't know if it actually has a real name. But what we want to do is use the blocks to create our maze, and then we build towers on top of the blocks to help us kill our enemies. So, why don't we, obviously this seems like a smart idea to block off this really easy access area here and force the enemies to take the long way around. Unfortunately, I am now out of blocks. And we have enough for 1 turret, and I am going to suggest that maybe we use the lightning turret. Doesn't have great range here, unfortunately. Does the cannon turret? Not really. Does the Gatling turret? No. We're going to use 1 cannon turret, like right here then, in the hopes that enemies will move in this direction. But obviously what I'm going to want to do, one of my priorities moving forward, is going to be to funnel enemies into this kind of like death corridor right here. Guess I could have called it a fuck hallway. Anyway, let's get started here. So when I hit enter, I can start the wave, and you can see my weapons. So every weapon has a primary and a secondary. You can obviously see my primary attack right there. It'll reload automatically. This game has kind of a weird reload system that I'll talk about a little bit later, but I'm just going to continue to fire these rockets at people. And I'll show you the secondary attack as well, which is basically right-click, which is going to lock onto these guys and then fire like a barrage of, I don't even know what you'd call them, cluster bombs, essentially. Alright, so wave 1, in contrast, I guess, to Super Sanctum TD, is actually usually pretty easy. So let's sprint over here and see what we get for our, we get 4 blocks this time, and also 160. Now we can either, you played tower defense games or looked at them, I'm sure, before. So we can either use those to upgrade our existing turrets, which will adjust their range or rate of fire or damage, or we can use that to build new turrets. So what I am going to do is kind of try to funnel enemies like so, and their the enemy route or path will change dynamically based on the blocks that we set out. So as you can see, okay, now they're going to come out over here, so that was what I was worried about. So now we are going to force them to come through this little corridor where they will be hit by this Gatling cannon. Now I'm not sure if we'll be able to upgrade it for one. We could recycle it if we want to, but I'm not sure if we'll be able to upgrade it for one whole path. So what I'm actually going to do, or one whole upgrade. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to build a lightning turret, which is one of my favorites, like right here. And as that falls down, by the way, these will hurt your enemies, and well, not your enemies, but if you have allies and the turrets fall on them, or the blocks fall on them, it will hurt them. And we have one more block to go. What we should probably do is just put it right here to make sure they stay in the corridor for as long as possible. Alright, so let's get started again. We're going to have a few different kinds of enemies coming here. And on this kind of wave, I want to demonstrate the weirdness and the uniqueness of the weapon system, because what actually happens is you kind of want to switch weapons anytime your weapon runs out of ammo, because after you switch weapons, your other weapon will automatically reload, kind of like while it's in your holster or on your back or something. So you're not actually in the position where you want to kind of stick with one weapon. It's actually the exact opposite. You want to continually move between them, which is a very unique style of combat. I'm not sure how I feel about it, but it certainly is unusual. Whether that's for better or worse is likely up to personal preference. You're constantly shifting between weapons, but that makes it seem a little bit superficial to me because, there's not that much strategy, I find, at least so far. Again, I haven't played an insignificant amount of the game. I played 2 hours so far. And I've been stuck at the same level for about 50% of that time of that 2 hours, I would say, which either speaks volumes about my skill or speaks volumes about the fact that this game is not easy and, in fact, gets fairly substantially difficult pretty early on, but hopefully we'll be able to at least give that mission a try here. This is a fairly short one that I wanted to do just to show off mechanics. So, there are boss mobs that we'll encounter from time to time. This is actually going much better than I think I've ever done it before. And, like Super Sanctum TD, there is an experience mechanic that goes on here, which is, universal, which means, the first time you... it doesn't really matter, it goes from level to level is what I'm trying to say there. So, there's a level up system, almost similar to like the perks in a Call of Duty or something like that. So I'm a little bit worried that these guys might be able to get through to the exit. There is one big baddie left. Probably should have switched weapons there. Oh no, he just got killed by a turret. Awesome. Another thing that I'm a little bit iffy on is the fact that you have to run back to the core every single time to get these resources. It kind of works in co-op, I guess, because it adds like a little bit of a meta game where you and your teammate, because there's only one resource drop. I mean, 2 resources drop, but it's not like one of them is assigned to you and one of them is assigned to your teammate. So it's a little interesting, shall I say, in the sense that you and your teammate both race down these resources, and if he gets them, well, sorry, you might not have a chance to do anything during the build phase here, except, offer some kind of input. It's a weird style, and it's not, I guess, that unusual. Games have done that before, where there's only been one set of resource drops. I'm trying to think of something like a Diablo 2, where, like, if one weapon drops or something, well, you and your teammate have to fight over it, and then your mom has to get involved, and, nobody's happy in the end. Just wanted to hit enter here. But, it's weird coming from an era of games like, Torchlight 2 or Diablo 3, where everybody gets their own loot drops, to just have situations where, unfortunately, if you've got a really quick teammate, you're not going to be able to participate. But, the game's about cooperation, so maybe if you have poor communication, you're not with the right person when you're playing this game. So, we do have these allies over here. They suck really bad. Like, not even being subjective here. They basically die in one hit most of the time. And, we're getting a variety of enemies here. Some bigger, some smaller. Some have ranged attacks. Some have melee attacks. It's the kind of thing you've seen many, many times before. And I don't necessarily mean that in a negative way. I mean, there's a reason that there's a mixture of enemies like this. It's because it forces us to kind of adapt our strategy as different waves come about. But I kind of don't do that even still. I kind of just, most of the time, do whatever I want to do. So we do have 2 waves left here. And yeah, I mean, this is the single player of Sanctum. It's not remarkably engaging, but what I do like about this game, I think one of the strongest parts of this game, besides the visuals, which are very nice, is the fact, at least in the single-player game, that you can completely design your maze of towers. This is something that Monday Night Combat, in its Blitz mode or its multiplayer mode, didn't do. you know, those forced you into like specific turret building spots, which is fine. I mean, there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. But I like the ability to create your own maze, and it creates kind of a variety of strategies that could be used, which is kind of interesting, and it makes it a varied experience from person to person, I would have to imagine. This is a game that definitely excels. Oh, this seriously didn't create a wall? That's kind of shitty. This one should, though. It creates a varied experience, but this is a game that definitely shines in co-op, I feel. Oh, I didn't realize these were so far away. Let's recycle this one. I'm not necessarily the best builder right now. And we should really upgrade that lightning turret that I only got halfway to upgrading. I feel like the upgrades come pretty slowly. Like, the resources don't seem to fly fast and furious. And I'm not sure if that's due to me performing poorly or something like that. This is a soaker, which is an enemy that just soaks up a ton of damage. And I believe the Gatling turrets are the best ones to deal with these, but unfortunately I didn't create any Gatling turrets, so we're just going to try to take him out the old-fashioned way. Like so. I do have some lightning turrets. I mean, we start with some turrets just randomly on the level. So I'm hoping this is going to be enough to take him out. It looks like he's dying pretty quickly. But at the same time, he's super annoying. But yeah, I forget what I was getting at. I really enjoy the idea that you can build your own maze, and that makes things kind of interesting. At the same time, I don't know how my impressions of this game are on the whole. I mean, it's not bad. It's $15, but I'm looking at this and saying, like, okay, Monday Night Combat, when it came out in 2009, had basically this mode, and, I mean, it looked visually different, it looked visually worse. There's no objectivity necessarily in visuals. But I felt like Monday Night Combat, or feel like Monday Night Combat looks a lot worse. Not Super Monday Night Combat, by the way, the original. But, you know, Monday Night Combat came out in 2009 for the same price, and it had this mode, plus a really awesome multiplayer mode that was kind of ahead of its time, I feel. So, you know, I'm a little bit on the fence, I guess I should say. There's a lot of tower defense games coming out this week. Sanctum's fun. Is it necessarily worth a buy at full price? Or I should say Sanctum 2, I suppose. Sanctum 2's fun, but is it necessarily worth a buy at full price? I don't know. That might come down to, you know, how you feel about, you know, tower defense games or pseudo-tower defense games in general. I'm going to drop a couple of Gatling turrets down here. We do have a lot more blocks, but we're out of other resources. So I think I'm just going to try to take out these big bads here. Or medium-sized bads, at least. Again, I think there's a lot of weirdness in this game, too. Like, the weapon system is very strange. The fact that you simply switch weapons instead of actually, like, reloading one weapon. It's weird coming from, I'm like, playing Metro at exactly the same time, so it's definitely unusual from that context. And sometimes I forget, and, you know, that falls on me, not the game, necessarily. But, I don't know. It's something that I don't necessarily like on a mechanic standpoint, but I could see other people possibly being into it. Because it means the action never stops, right? It means there's never a period where you're not doing something. By the way, you can die. If you die, you don't lose. I believe you just take a while to respawn. At least that's the way it works in multiplayer. I think I beat that mission without actually losing any health at all, which is pretty, or any health on my core at all, which should give me a decent amount of experience, hopefully. Now, there are these feats of strength as well. I don't know if those are things that you can just find, like if I look, okay, so we're getting a lot of, like, perks here that we can unlock. I don't know if those are things that we can actually see the objectives for, or if those are kind of hidden achievements. Before we do this mission that has kicked my ass repeatedly, why don't we go back and we'll, you know, you can see how long the game is, at least unless there's any secret worlds. Facility, so far, like I said, 2.5 hours. Largely, this is because I suck at the game. If you're a little bit better, you might be able to speed through this a little bit more quickly. But this is at least a 4 to 6 hour game. From a non-replay standpoint. If you're playing it in co-op, you know, you can feel free to add more of that as you play with your friends. Yes, exit to the main menu. Just want to show off any other modes that there might be. Apologies, by the way, I'm a little bit sick here. We have a gallery. So I guess that's it, actually, in terms of the modes. We can join some multiplayer games, but it's not like there's any kind of, like, adversarial combat that I can tell. Like an Anomaly 2, like me versus you or something like that. Which was an accidental rhyme. But that's fine. This game, you know, it's not overpriced. It does what it does well, and it looks very polished, and it plays very polished. And it's got online co-op, which a lot of indie games these days do not have, for reasons that, you know, are pretty obvious from a resource standpoint. Let's play as Sweet Autumn again. I know I should probably mix things up, but otherwise I'm going to get my ass kicked, because this is the only character I really know how to use that well. What new perks did we unlock? Increases weak spot damage by 40%. So enemies do have weak spots. Usually they're like glowing red fuck me beacons that you can just shoot. Increases weapons damage by 30%. That actually seems pretty good, because I don't necessarily always target my shots appropriately. Did we get new turrets? Yes, we did. It only hits ground units, good against crowds. You know what? That actually seems really useful. So I replaced the Gatling turret with that. Sure, let's try this out. Alright, so this mission, as mentioned, has kicked my ass pretty repeatedly, and I imagine it will probably do so again here. Where is our... There we go. So we start with 10 blocks and 300 resources. That's actually really substantial. And we can look at our map here and realize how do we want to design this. So we're going to have enemies coming out from over here. We're going to have enemies coming out from over here. And enemies coming out from over here. But it's going to take time for that to happen. So I think what I want to do is try to get the enemies that come out from here and here to try to meet up in the middle. So again, this is the way I've done my strategy like 4 times before in the past. And every single time has failed. So hopefully, you know, that Einstein quote that everyone brings up all the time doesn't necessarily apply here. So we're going to build a few of these. The way you construct buildings is kind of interesting, as you can tell. Or construct structures, I guess, is kind of interesting. Okay, is this... Maybe we should save some for next time, and then I will produce a lightning turret right here at the bend. We might have to recycle that a little bit later, but I think this is how we want to do this. And then we'll try to funnel, like, enemies from the other side into this, like, build-a-block right here. Build-a-block theater. Battle-block theater. Build-a-bear workshop. I don't know. So enemies from over here we want to get to come through this corridor as well, so this lightning turret hits them. And you know what? We can build another lightning turret, so why don't we build it right here, just to create kind of a gate of doom that enemies are going to have to go through. And then we'll get started here. So again, this is up to 4-player co-op. Watch my adversaries probably die in mere seconds here. They usually die in 1 or 2 hits each, which is infuriating. But at the same time, I guess understandable when you're dealing with these enemies. There is a story of some sort, but it hasn't really been articulated well. So I don't really know what's going on for the most part. I should really, do the secondary fire on the weapons to see how it works. A lot of the weapons do have, like, vastly different primary and secondary weapons. Or primary and secondary fires, which is interesting. Again, it keeps things a little bit varied. But at the same time, most of the time, I've been able to do alright with only primary fire. Now we can see enemies are pouring in from the other side as well. So again, one of my kind of not necessarily objective negatives, but one of the things that makes this game, it breaks up the momentum a little bit for me, is having to go back to the core every single time to get these new blocks. If only, like, if every time you killed an enemy, you just got those resources, I feel like I might be enjoying my experience a little bit more. Not that I'm not enjoying it, but I could definitely be a bigger fan of this game, shall we say. So we're going to keep dropping these down, and we're going to create like a diagonal block here. Now they have to go through here, and we're also going to create like some barriers this way, so that they have to stay within like a certain set path, which is important, because otherwise they'll just walk away from the turrets. The AI is actually pretty smart. If they can path away from the turrets, oftentimes they will. Not always, but it's certainly not just bad AI. They'll figure out a way to avoid taking damage if they can. So with 250 resources, I don't know, again, if this is going to be enough to upgrade these lightning turrets, but I think that's probably a smart idea. So why don't we invest a lot in upgrading this one? I think it might be enough, actually. Oh, it was very close. Now we have 25 resources, which I will save for the next time. Now, it's usually asymmetrical, so I'm imagining it's going to be harder enemies coming out from one side and faster enemies coming out from the other side. So I'm going to take out the faster enemies. Although I should probably continue looking at my map. One thing I will say is that in like tower defense games like this, these maps always disorient me, and I don't know why necessarily, but whenever I look at the map and then look at myself, this happens in Orcs Must Die 2 a lot with me too, but I just like don't know what's up. I guess the weak spot on this guy is inside of his mouth. By the way, my weapon does set people on fire as well, so that is why they are taking damage over time. And there is totally friendly fire. I will say, from a visual perspective, the ragdolls in the game look awesome. And also, when enemies jib, I'm pretty sure it's the same jib every single time, but it looks fairly cool as well. So the first time I saw it using the rocket launcher, I was like, alright, that's pretty dope. Not to sound, like Aziz Ansari or something. So now we have enemies coming in through here. We only have 4... No, we have 8 waves, okay. And we can only build on certain areas, as you might expect. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use my blocks to block off all but one of these exits, so that they absolutely all have to use this right ramp. If I didn't do that, we would have a lot more problems to deal with. But instead, by doing it this way, every enemy will be forced to come around and go through here. And with 275, I almost feel like we should... Well, why don't we try out our new turret, which will pop down... I wonder if I could put it... Can I put a block right here? Yeah, this will force enemies to go even further around. And this creates an awesome area for this turret to go. Because no one will be able to bypass this. moving forward. So let's just start the round. I've got a lot of resources that I could possibly use to, facilitate an upgrade next time, which is good. So, looking at my map, I can see the enemies are only coming from over here. Sometimes enemies get stunned or slowed. I don't exactly know what causes this, but whenever it happens, I'm a very happy camper. I will go that far. So I'm just going to continue firing my rocket. By the way, there is absolutely 100% a rocket jump. Like, if I wanted to just do something like that, I totally could, and then come up in the air. Hasn't been a functional use for it yet, but goddamn, it has some style. So, Walker Warrior. Thank God we never fight Walker Texas Ranger. That would probably present some issues for us. And the physics, the engine seems really good. Like, I seem to get propelled backwards to a reasonable degree when I fire these enormous rockets. Especially considering I am a diminutive young lady who probably does not have a substantial mass. That's probably the nerdiest way to put that. You can tell why I'm such a Lothario. And one more kill here should work. This is actually maybe the best I've ever done in a tower defense video for the channel. So we'll just let the turrets take care of them there. We'll go back and get our resources, and I think we're gonna be alright here. I played this mission in co-op with Kate, like, twice, and we failed both times. So I think it's fair to say that, I mean, we used basically this strategy. I think it's fair to say that the difficulty increases proportionally based on the number of people you have. I don't know if it increases based on the levels you have, but definitely based on the number of people you have, which is very important. Otherwise, obviously, things would get far too easy. And of course, the other thing is I'm mentioning that the co-op is a strength here, and I do believe it is, but this is all dependent on the game actually finding some kind of online community. And I don't know if Sanctum 1 did, because I didn't play Sanctum 1. If it did, that's totally cool, though. If it didn't, then it's basically a moot point. So as always, whenever I talk about an online game, take it with a grain of salt, because it's totally possible that, those points just won't matter in the end. I hope it finds a good online community, because I know there's people out there that like these kinds of games, because there was a good community for Monday Night Combat. But even on Blitz mode, I'm going to put a lightning turret here. And, oh, yes, there you go. So you can see that I accidentally hurt myself there. But we have regenerating health. That was probably a good way to demonstrate that anyway, actually. And with the amount of resources we have, I could probably put down another block somewhere, or I could definitely put down another turret somewhere, but I actually want to save my resources, and I'll use those for upgrading some turrets next time, and once I have better blocks, because I really want to make sure that all of my blocks hit more than one enemy simultaneously, or more than one wave of enemies simultaneously. I want to make sure they all get funneled into, like, the same location. And that in the future this is going to work out well for us. So we have like an earthquake turret. There is some kind of like earthquake mechanic in this game that keeps showing up, like as I get further and further into waves, like enemies, or my screen will just start shaking and I can't hold my gun properly. Again, I think that ties into the story, but basically beats me because I don't think the story has necessarily been articulated. I'm not going to say the story hasn't been articulated as much as it needs to be, but it hasn't been articulated as much as it needs to be in order to explain what the fuck is going on, basically. So please, earthquake turret. Oh, I think we have some enemies getting close to the core here. These enemies are annoying as hell. We still have our conscripts up here, which is pretty surprising. You can tell I've been playing Company of Heroes too, by calling them conscripts. But I think we're going to get through this one okay, which should give us a ton of resources to use on our next mission, which I'm excited about. Or not our next mission, but our next wave, which I'm excited about. Because it, like I said, I failed this mission many, many times before we got to this point. So we're on wave 5 of 8, which means we're about halfway there. Let's go back and get our resources. By this point, you should really know whether Sanctum 2 is the kind of game that you're excited about. If I had to guess, there's probably some kind of Steam pack where you can buy 2 or 4 of these and play with your friends. And if you're into this kind of game, I would recommend it. Although I am not into these kind of games enough to necessarily say that it's my cup of tea. So I think this is going to be another good location for maybe one of these earthquake turrets. And with the amount of resources that I have, I feel like I should just upgrade this one. And then might bankrupt us. Ooh, that was really close. We have 13 resources left. Alright, let's start another one. I'm playing pretty slowly here, as you can tell. But, you could play more quickly if that's the way that you want to, I suppose. I'm a little bit more methodical, not necessarily because I'm, good at the game, but because I'm actually bad at the game. So I need to take a little bit more time. So this is our big bat. I don't know why I couldn't move there for a second. I think we took the perk that disables doing weak point damage, but for some reason it just seems like the right thing to do to continue trying to hit him where it hurts. And he'll probably be able to get to the core unless my sweet assortment of turrets here actually does something good. And then there is like a rock, paper, scissors mechanic going on here as well, because, you know, some turrets are good against some enemies, whereas others are good against other enemies, as you might expect. And it looks like I've got a pretty sweet array here set up. But keep in mind that as we get further and further along, there will be more and more enemies. Oh, there are some enemies that have basically gotten up to the core here. Sadly, my core is finally taking a little bit of damage, but, yeah, as we get further and further along, we're going to get more of those big bads, so I'm definitely going to need to build more turrets and keep them upgraded. It's a tower defense game, you know, at a certain point, kind of feels like I don't need to explain the mechanics anymore. I just need to talk about my opinion, but we're kind of in that awkward moment where I've talked about my opinion, and now we're just waiting on this mission to finish, so I can give kind of my end of game thoughts, I suppose I could say. So we're just going to wait for these screamers to die. Well, I'll make sure to edit this out. Apologies, there was an enormous sneeze there. Like I mentioned, I am a little bit sick, so I've just edited that out, and we're hopefully, unless, you know, it's going to be super gross. And we're going to hopefully kill this armored heavy, which somehow managed to get through here. By the way, the other thing I should mention is I don't believe that enemies attack your towers. So they only attack your core, which is good, I guess. You know, it's a mechanics thing. You either like it or you don't like it. There are tower defense games, obviously, where your towers do get attacked. And, you know, whatever. If you're into that, you're into that. If you're not, you're not. So, my core did take damage there. How much? I should go back and check, not to accidentally do a Borat reference. It changes color based on how much damage it's taken, so it still seems fairly strong here as we move on to the third last wave. I don't know if I want to... I mean, I could maze this out a little bit more. There's no question about that. I guess the way that I would do that is I would put one here. Oh, I didn't really want to build a turret there, actually, but sure, that'll be fine. And then I'll just build some more blocks around this way. Because I want to, you know, I'm not sure where that armored heavy came in because I was busy snoozing my brains out. But I think it might have come in from this side. So hopefully this will create a sweet array, again, where enemies will not have a chance to get through. As you can see, the missions are long. So, you know, the fact that there might only be 16 missions in the game is not necessarily damning from a length standpoint. It's definitely the kind of game where each mission is going to take you, you know, maybe on the order of 20 minutes to a half hour, as you can probably tell right now. And to be honest with you, I'm kind of bored by the end of some of these missions. I mean, there have been exciting ones. There have been ones where I was very close to death, and that's cool. But then there's been other ones where I've just kind of been going through the motions. That's kind of standard for early game, or early game, all games in the early game, I guess you could say. As long as you've played it before, you can kind of, you know, get over the tutorialness of it pretty quickly. But, you know, at the same time, it's not been a 100% engaging experience. And it's been pretty difficult. I mean, I've mentioned that I haven't had too much trouble. The exception is this level. And again, this is the best I've ever done at this level. And I still am looking like I might lose. Enemies get difficult pretty quickly. Part of that is because I'm talking and playing at the same time. So I should really be focusing on trying to, you know, switch weapons like I mentioned earlier. But again, that mechanic is kind of difficult to internalize sometimes. There is a perk, by the way, where you can heal your core at the end of every wave, but I sadly did not take that, even though I absolutely should have, because now we find ourselves in a difficult position. The other thing is, by default, this game has some weird controls. Right-click is secondary fire, which makes sense, but that means that, like, aiming down the iron sights, or aiming down the scope, if you have one, is control, which is really awkward for me. And not necessarily the direction that I might have taken that if I was given the choice. I'm not sure if aiming down the sights gives you an advantage from a damage standpoint. Now, we are probably going to lose this actually right now. Where's this dude? Okay. We're on wave 7 of 8, and things are not necessarily going well. What I might suggest, I don't even know if we need any more blocks at this point. Again, I could probably maze it out a little bit more, but sometimes you have a time limit. So I'm going to upgrade this one a little bit more. Please tell me you can get to level 3. Alright, beautiful. So this turret is maxed out, which gave me some kind of Steam achievement. And I'm not sure if we can even upgrade anything else. So we might as well just pump it into this one. And then get going again. So I'm kind of thinking that our safety is not guaranteed here. We have a big bad here, obviously. And since, I guess, weak point damage doesn't matter anymore, I can just kind of go to town. But, you know, we might as well try again. Keep good habits, shall we say. And we'll go to town on this guy, because if he gets through to the end, we're going to have some serious problems. If we lose, I'm going to blame this entirely on the sneeze anyway. I'm getting my ass kicked from behind here by these little guys. Just run away. Oh, so, well, at least you can see what happens when there's death, right? I think my core is actually dying right here. The problem is that your adversaries, your allies die so quickly. Yes, left mouse button to respawn. Our core is going to die in a matter of seconds here. There we go, defeat! I told you, man, this mission's really hard. This is the 4th time I've done it, and probably by watching this, you can say, like, oh, there's something I would have done differently. But for me, it's been a difficult and kind of frustrating time with this mission, and I think the difficulty ramps up a little bit faster than I would like it to. But in any case, this is Sanctum 2. I have overall positive impressions of this game, and in co-op, it's a lot of fun, especially if you're a fan of that Monday Night Combat style of gameplay, or Orcs Must Die 2 is maybe a more recent comparison at the very least. But is this necessarily a must-purchase at $15? I don't think so. I think this is the kind of game where you can wait for a Steam sale or some kind of sweet promo to pick up a few copies and play with your friends. And from a single-player standpoint, sure, you know, if you're into the original, maybe you'll be into this one. But if you're just trying to jump into the series for the first time, I think co-op is going to be a good incentive to make that happen. In the world of pseudo tower defense games, I think this definitely falls below Orcs Must Die 2, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. It's just not maybe as good as I would like. But in any case, as always, thanks for you guys for watching. There will be a link in the video description to buy this on Steam if you are interested, and as always, thanks for you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.